I really had no plan to make another part about the Undersiders, but I guess there are a few more spoiler-heavy things I wanted to talk about. Specifically about Gru, Regent, and the more relevant future members of the group. Beginning with Gru, after certain events, he experienced a second trigger. In exchange for experiencing something similarly traumatic, or maybe a bit more traumatic than his initial trigger event, the parameters of his power changed and improved. In terms of benefits, his darkness felt heavier on enveloped people and its overall mass was bigger, though the most pertinent changes were that his darkness could now suppress powers, and that Gru could use the powers of those inside it. He became a trump. There are a few caveats, though. Gru could only use one power at a given time, but he could switch between them fairly quickly. Additionally, Gru's ability to produce his darkness was also slower than it was before. However, the most relevant weakness was that he did not receive the experiences of the original user of the power he was borrowing, nor did he typically receive secondary powers that may have assisted in using the quote-unquote main power. Subsequently, as one could imagine, his fine control of the power was inferior compared to the original user, and any tricks or fine details that the original user may have discovered or developed were unknown to him. I will note that Thinker powers were generally the secondary powers he did not receive, but in a more general sense, the latter powers didn't work for him that well anyway, so... Now, onto Regent. In the last video, I noted that his power involved involuntary movement. That wasn't wrong, but I guess in a way that was a bit misleading. As I'm sure you may have concluded or looked it up yourself, his power was more specifically about influencing someone's nervous system. With that detail, the other aspect of Regent's power I did not mention is that if he uses his power on someone repeatedly, and in quick succession, he could control the recipient's body. More so, he could control multiple people at the same time, and should he choose to, he could take direct control of a body. If the person happens to be a parahuman, he could use their power too. As great as that all sounds, there are a few things to consider. First, it takes several hours for Regent to become acclimated to a body's nervous system for him to take full control. Second, depending upon how many people he is controlling and or the distance his target or targets were from his body, overall body coordination, speech fluidity, and fine body control could vary significantly, outside distractions notwithstanding. Finally, while directly inhabiting a body, he does feel the pain and feelings of the body's owner, though it typically didn't bother or pose much issue for him. Now then, let's move on to new members starting with Imp. Her power renders her unnoticeable to those around her, or more specifically, she makes people forget that she is even there. Additionally, clues that may link to her presence are also more difficult to link to her. In terms of weaknesses, a notable one is that she can be seen on video. Her power is also essentially on by default, and she needs to make a conscious effort to reveal herself, though she was later able to verbally communicate without revealing herself, and improved her fine control to the point where she could make people forget the most recent parts of a conversation. Being seen on video was still an issue, but records of her supposedly decayed. She is a stranger. Onto Parian, an interesting addition to the group. Her power is telekinesis, though perhaps not in the typical sense. To immediately move on to limitations, she can't really move heavy objects. More so, since her power needs to quote-unquote soak into the material she's using, non-porous materials don't work too well for her either. With the latter in mind, she mainly worked with cloth and things like that. Though the true use of her power is only revealed in the sequel to Worm, and well, that's one bit of information I won't give. She is a master. Finally, we have Foil. Her power is imbuing objects and materials with the ability to ignore some laws of physics. The most notable example of the latter was how it allowed whatever she powered up to pierce and go through anything. Though another application was making things have less friction or be frictionless. Now, for her, I want to explain her classifications a bit more compared to the rest. She is a striker because she needs to touch the things she wants to empower. She's a blaster because projectiles with her power make for a fairly formidable combo. Finally, she was presumably a thinker since she had an intuitive understanding of angles and trajectories in addition to an enhanced sense of timing. I guess I'm done, but to ramble for a bit, I think foil with her rapier and throwing darts work well enough, but I think if she had a crossbow or something like that, that might be a more effective alternative. Also, if she was evil, I think it'd be pretty funny in a gruesome sort of way to combo her power with Jack Slash's power.